What is the opportunity of chaos? What's the mastery we are being invited to practice? Today's guest, Sanna Calvert, is here to encourage us to practice creating our own realities, bringing everything that we perceive and receive on the outside of us inside for internal alchemy. Join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection with that which is greater than us, to the big mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably towards a deeper understanding of who we are and what we are doing here on the planet at this time. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and what's up in this space is a whole lot of chaos. I think we can all agree on that. And lots of different perspectives in the middle of that chaos. And the question of what do we do with all of this that we're experiencing, that we're witnessing, that we're feeling, that we're seeing, that we desire deep within ourselves, and the outer world that may or may not agree with us. What do we do with all that? And that's really going to be the subject of our interview today with the beautiful Sanna Calvert. Welcome, Sanna.
Hi, Carrie. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm so glad to be here in this beautiful space you've created with this community.
Yeah, I'm excited to have Sanna on this broadcast. And of course, as you know, if you're on Ethereal TV with us, Sanna has a TV show on Ethereal TV as well as me. And so we're having this opportunity to work together and have conversations back and forth. And so Dr. Sanna Wu-Pong is the founder and executive director of two 501c3 nonprofits, the Foundation for Family and Community Healing, which fosters resilience and well-being skills development, as well as the Sanctuary of Earth, whose mission is to actualize human spiritual potential. And so during her career, she has published almost 100 journal articles, books, chapters, and abstracts, and has written hundreds of blogs, including for Psychology Today. She is the chair of the Rotary Club's District 7600 Mental Health Task Force, a former radio show host, and as I mentioned, a Ethereal TV personality. She's also a Reiki master and a master healer and a soul medium, a tarot reader, and an intuitive coach. And I'll give you links in the show notes to her website, susannacalvert.com. But so we're going to talk today about what do we do in the middle of all this chaos? How do we create our own reality? And, you know, given that we're faced with everything that we're seeing in the collective right now, some of it's quite disturbing. Some of it is scary, quite frankly. And some of it may make us wonder, should I move to some other country? You know, like there's some things going on here in the United States and definitely in other places in the world that are terrifying. And yet we know in our soul's guidance that we have the ability to create our own reality when we become sovereign and aligned with that truth. So I know that you have a long path of coming to that discovery of your own. Do you want to share some of your own path of realizing your soul potential with our audience today?
Yeah, thanks, Carrie, for that question. Well, I think I spent more time marching along unconsciously on a path devised by my ego and my fearful self. But I understand that that was also part of the grand plan or curriculum for myself. And I bought into the whole Kool-Aid of the path to happiness being through success and educational achievement and professional and curricular, blah, 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 and academic. And it fell apart for me at the age of 36 when I realized I'd been chasing somebody else's dream. I had acquired everything on my checklist for happiness, and I was quite the opposite. I was quite miserable. And so I went on a search for, I guess it was really a 20-year search for authenticity and following my heart and discovering who I really was. And it was really beautiful up until 2018, when I was coming back from my sister's funeral and we learned of my husband's stage 4 cancer. And I went from being an atheist pretty much my whole life to having a spiritual awakening in that moment. And I thought, I'm going to bring the heavens down to help heal him. So nothing like the determination of a stubborn woman intent on saving her beloved. So I did everything I could to do that. And I was invited into a relationship with a grandmother who's in the spirit realm, who said she would teach me her medicine. And so I did everything I could to learn this, whatever this was, even though I didn't know what it meant to communicate with somebody in the spirit realm. And so thus began what has now been a 6+ year journey of discovering myself as a spiritual being and building on, really ever since that age of 36, a foundation of better self-awareness and self-management, and working on myself from the deepest point of view, but more from a psychological and emotional. And now I've been adding this spiritual perspective, spiritual development and guidance, and bringing that to who I am, and an even more self-transcendent sense of purpose to the world, bringing my intuition to my leadership and to what I'm here to teach and to invite others into, and to help them come along into what I think, what a lot of people are calling New Earth, which to me is a version of heaven on earth. And it's not something we wait for, it's something we create right now.
Yeah, you're echoing messages from our last interview with Keith Giles, talking about it's not like we're sitting here waiting for some savior to come and fix it all for us. You know, like there's a lot of fundamentalists who are like waiting for Jesus to come back and save us and fix everything. And it's like, no, that was never the message. The message is exactly what you're saying, that we are here to look within and to create heaven on earth here now for ourselves, and then to offer it to others, not to force others into our version of heaven on earth, but to really tune into ourselves, stay in our own lane, create what's right for ourselves. And then whoever's resonant with that will sort of naturally gravitate to that and experience that with us as well. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, I'm not a Christian by any means, but I sense that the second coming of Christ is when we discover that he's been with us this whole time. And it's just hiding in plain sight. And when we really discover the divinity of Christ or Buddha or Muhammad or whoever your prophet is, or whoever your god or goddess is, earth, it's all right here within us.
Yeah. And so we get the opportunity to tune into that quiet voice within, right? And release the noise of the outer world and come inside to tune into what's true for us, in that sacred inner conversation with the divine creator energy, whatever that expresses as in terms of our prophet or our, who we're following, gods, goddesses, etc. But we are having that experience within ourselves of tuning into that energetic and listening for our own self, for our own guidance, not assuming it's right for anybody else.
Yeah, and that space within is so beautiful and profound and sacred. Like, we just have temples inside our body. And whether we want to call that our inner wisdom, or we're talking to, the prophet or the savior, or whom or whatever it is that you find to be divine, your creator, something bigger than you, we all have it inside, and we don't have to force others to do it. Everybody has it inside too. And I feel like the more we're forcing or focusing on others' path and telling people where they're not on their path, then we're missing the point. We focus, our opportunity is to focus on our own path. And it's really an imperative, because it doesn't seem like the world can get any crazier, and then it does. And so we can rage and rail against it, and we can fight, and we can complain and blame is the phrase I like to say. But again, that's all missing the point in my point of view. And all of it is an invitation to go within. And in fact, the worse it gets out there, the louder that insistence to go within becomes. It's this beautiful circling the drain of rock bottom. And I know most people are like, no, you can't say that. Rock bottom's a terrible place, but I think it's a beautiful place, because it's when we realize that our beliefs that have got us here are not going to get us out, that they got us here. They're not going in any other direction. They're not going to suddenly change course and lift us out of here. And that's when the breakthrough happens. That's when we crack open and we finally get to confront what we have been afraid to face, what we have been scared to see, what we have not wanted to become or do. And that that's an incredibly beautiful, precious place where that's when real growth and insight and wisdom can happen.
Yeah. And it's that place of being really honest with ourselves, right? It's like we might see that somebody else is out there in the world is reflecting to us a certain behavior or ideology or words or anything, right, that we find triggering or we find provoking, like for our own safety or for our well-being or whatever it is. And then it's like, rather than trying to fix it out there by changing that other person, the opportunity is to come inside. And so many prophets have shared this with us in their own language, but to come inside and transform, alchemize that perception of the energy being out there, coming in, taking ownership of where it lives inside, alchemizing it in here, and then becoming incongruent with that energy. So like, that's actually the power play, is to become completely incongruent with any energy outside of what's true for your soul. And then at that point, you know, only like energy meets like. So kind of things can't really happen against your sovereign will, right? So like being a kind of working it out there is missing the point, as you were saying. It's an invitation to come inside that triggers an invitation to go, oh, I have something to work on here inside of myself.
Yeah. And it might be a both and, like, but it starts with the working on inside first, because if we're just reacting and lashing out and being angry or getting depressed, then that's not really acting from our place of strength and sovereignty, as you said, and bringing our highest self to the situation. But when we get outside of the noise of our head and the judgment and the fear-based language, and we really get into our hearts and our bodies, is when we can really discover that truth. Not only to remember to keep all of this in perspective, because if something happens, then if you examine everybody's reaction and beliefs to it, it's going to occur like if you ask 1,000 people, they're going to have 1,000 points of view. And so, you know, I can say, and I have, let's just be clear, I have said, oh, my viewpoint is the right way. Well, that's BS, of course, because there's some validity to every point on the spectrum. We're all looking at it from a different angle. We all have different emotional truths. We all have different contexts for which we're interpreting things. And so when we get triggered and emotional and reactive, we're giving away our power to act from our place of strength. And when we bring back our calm and we get underneath the judginess and the fear, and we get into our inner truth, then that's where our power is. And so we can stay peaceful and grounded. And then if we need to, we can decide what the right thing to do is. And maybe we don't act, but maybe we have to draw a boundary, or maybe we have to get out the vote, or maybe we need to raise money, or maybe we need to lend a helping hand. I mean, there's something there. You know, if we are in right relationship with ourselves and our world, there is an invitation for us to be, or to say, or to do in the situation, and doing it from our place of power. When I'm upset and angry and my mind is spinning and my heart's racing, I am not in my power.
Yeah. And the power, the true power is the power of the part of us that's beyond this body. I mean, the true part is the eternal energetic that created this body to experience life through, right? And so that part of us is well beyond one incarnation, you know, in my embodied understanding. And so when we actually can work things at the unseen level, the most people don't see energy. So that's when I say unseen, I mean the ancestral energies related to the situation, the planetary energies, maybe there's stuck traumatic energies in a space, maybe there's, you know, inherited traumas. Maybe there could be so many facets to the conversation that are invisible to the naked eye if you're only looking at the physical reality. But when we actually focus there, right, with our intuitive sensing gifts, which is a beautiful, blessed place to be on the planet at this time, is to actually have those psychic gifts and those extrasensory perceptions and those realizations and understandings, because we can operate and we can clear so much out by going within, using these intuitive knowings to work with these other energies to clear things. Then the reality part just changes. So like, it's amazing how like the non-doing in the physical world, but doing in the inside world can make everything shift as well.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of inner work to do. And I've done a lot of inner work over the years, and I went from being just so stressed and type A perfectionist to you know, when I had my crash, to just being so peaceful and at ease. And I just know that people don't have to live that way. It's terrible for our health and for our relationships and our quality of life. You know, and you know, yes, my resume looked really good, but you know, it takes its toll. And so what happens when we really are willing to do the inner work is we can just create a garden of Eden within, and a sense of that heaven on earth on the outside. And I do, like you, Carrie, I do a lot of energy work. And when I get into people's energy, I just can sense like just the accumulated emotion just packed in their body. It can be really compressed, or it can be encased in things like, you know, things that feel like concrete, or you know, just really hard material that packs it in. And when our emotions and our chakras are all blocked in, we have a really hard time feeling who we are. We have a hard time feeling our wisdom and feeling the energy of the situation and the opportunity. And so I feel like, and then like you said, often I will discover portals in people's chakras, and like you said, it just goes back to ancestral energy. So it might be their family lineage, but it could also just be that of their ancestors or of humanity, just going back and back. So a lot of what, you know, in my view, what we carry is not even our own, even though some of it is, obviously. And it can just feel so much better to get that released. And my experience is it's in layers and layers. So oftentimes it takes several sessions to clear through it. And then it'll tend to release some deeper things. But I also find that isn't enough, because we have these mental habits, these thought patterns that create emotions, which then spur behavior. And so this contributes to the emotional garbage in our energy field. And if we don't identify those beliefs, like I'm not safe, I need to be perfect, you're untrustworthy, all of these things, if we don't notice and heal those beliefs, then we just re-energize the same pathway. So it's really a both and, like we need to clear out energetically, and then we also really need to get to the root of why we're so fearful and judgy or depressed, by identifying those beliefs and challenging them and creating healthy alternatives in their place. And that's just habit creation. It's hard work, and it takes practice, because you have to do it over and over again. But eventually you forget like that thing you used to do, which is the beautiful thing. It also takes courage, because, you know, we're going into our deepest fears, And it takes a warrioress or a warrior to be willing to go there. But what people find, and I found when I first started to do this, is that anything we find in there has been so, done so many times by so many people. Like back in the day, I'd be like, oh, the Barnes and Noble would have shelves and shelves of this topic. And, Amazon, of course, would have thousands of journals, books on it. So the beautiful thing is once we break through that, we realize that we are not alone, and it's a very human experience, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, what country you live in, your socioeconomic status, your gender or gender identity, your, whatever. We're all the same on the inside. And, it gives me great hope for humanity and finding our oneness, because when we get beneath just a couple of layers, we realize this, and we don't really have to get that far.
Yeah. And it's just a matter of awareness. It's a matter of willing to be aware, right? Willing to be aware, willing to heal, willing to change, willing to experience something new, willing to be wrong, because if you're not willing to be wrong, then you'll never find out anything other than what you think right? So there's so much more to realize than whatever we think we know from this limited experience on Earth right now. There's so much more to know. So we find that with beginner's mind. We find that with being willing to be curious and being willing to change, which are difficult things for humanity. I've noticed, like, it's hard to change, like there's fear around change, and there's resistance to change. But like, I'm just noticing a lot more energy around the inevitability of change. Like, it's right. Like, I'm feeling more and more people realizing this change is inevitable and starting to go, okay, well, if I can't stop the change, then I'm going to have to do something with the change. I'm just noticing that shift. I don't know if you're also noticing that happening.
Yeah, it seems like the more things seem to spiral out of control, the more that feels inevitable. And, what I say to myself is I don't need to add my resistance to the list of problems here. And whenever I'm feeling challenged, I just know this is part of the curriculum for growth that I designed for myself before I incarnated. And I say to myself, what do I need to learn to get through this? And that's just my mantra. What do I need to learn? What do I need to do? And if I take a step forward and then it comes up again, okay, I need to learn it deeper. And often it comes back around, but boy, it's so rewarding when we just accept that we have to learn and grow and get bigger. Because if you do that over and over again, you get bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden, these things that used to completely unglue you or would be kind of like a meh, that's a really rewarding moment where you go, wow, that used to really freak me out. I would worry about that for days. And, this is the story of humanity for the ages. So it's what Joseph Campbell called the hero's journey. I call the Shiro's journey. The people call it the heroine's journey. Whatever you want to call it. It's about becoming bigger in response to challenge. It's the story that has been told across time and culture since humans have been telling stories. And I feel like it is more relevant than ever right now. And when we quit blaming other people, trying to control things we can't control, finding fault with everything, then we can instead turn that energy into our healing and growth and wisdom and taking care of ourselves and each other and beloved Mother Earth. Oh my gosh. And, again, I feel terrible that humanity has to learn this the hard way. I know that I had to as well. I had to hit that drain at 60 miles an hour to wake up more than once. I'm not afraid to, I'm not embarrassed to admit that. And I, what I've learned after doing that drain work so many times is I look back and I guess for people who don't want to make mistakes or say they're wrong, I'm just going to say that nothing is wrong. It's not a mistake. It's part of our path for learning and growth. And it's just like, if a 3-year-old falls down, you don't go, oh, you stupid kid, you made a mistake. That's how a kid learns to run. And so that's what we're doing. We're learning how to be bigger and to be divine beings in the 3D. And we're going to fall down and we're going to do what we judge to be a mistake, but it's not a mistake. It's all part of the fabric of our learning and growth as an individual and as a species, and a part of the body of Earth. It's all perfect. It's all perfect. And when we really accept that, then even what the world might call the biggest screw up, yes, I will have those. As judged by the majority of people, I am sure. I just go, well, that was meant to be. I'm meant to learn this lesson this way. And thank you for the lesson. And what if we all did that? You know, there's not even a need for forgiveness. I mean, you don't even have to work on forgiveness when we really understand. It's just like taking a quiz at school, you know, and nobody makes 100 on everything. So, but seeing what we did, where we, you know, made a quote unquote mistake is how we can learn and do better by our own standards, by our soul's path.
And exactly. And when we have some more bigger picture associated with that, I think it's easier. It's harder to accept the things that when we start to hear people's voices who haven't been speaking, right? Who didn't have the freedom to speak. And then they start to share their ancestral experience, then it's very shocking to your reality, you know, to hear those words when you've been the one that's been benefiting. And I think that's a lot of that is what's going on here, is like not wanting to embrace the truth of how this country was formed and some of the uglier aspects of that formation. But also we have to embrace that in order to move forward into the actual potential, right? The potential that's here, not only for the country that you and I live in, you know, this continent, but also like the whole world. Like, in order for us to really embrace the potential, we do have to have some reconciliation. We do need to listen to our brothers and sisters who had a different experience. We need to understand the fullness of the experience of the last at least 100 years, right? In order to fully move past it. So to kind of bury our heads in the sand, that doesn't help us resolve anything to move forward into a new potential. So we do have to kind of like face the edges, right? Face the drain, face those like difficult things we don't want to look at, either in our personal life or in the collective.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, all of our choices are full of the upside and the downside. Every choice. I mean, I'm a woman of color, and I have also benefited from the oppression and the marginalization and exploitation of not only the history of our country, but what's happening right now in our country and beyond its borders. And so, you know, it's not an either or. You know, I'm not just the oppressed one and other people are oppressors. I am both the oppressed and the oppressor, you know, and we all have that yin yang, and we have to, I feel like when we find more balance in our perspective and take ownership of the parts that are challenging, then we can heal that part of ourselves and reclaim it. We can reclaim the humanity that we gave away when we were wounded, or when we wounded somebody else, or some other being like Earth, or water and air and land. So it's a part of our soul that we give away when we wound or are wounded. And so it is a wonderful opportunity for us to do that for ourselves and each other.
Yeah, and have that unconditional love through the exploration of our own personal journeys and our interaction with the collective themes, and our ability to acknowledge what is and has been happening at the same time as work towards a new future, you know, work towards a more equitable, co-creative, collective potential, you know, for New Earth, as you're calling it, and many of us are calling it New Earth. We have the ability to decide what is it that we choose to create in New Earth. And what is it that we choose to leave behind? So the no is just as powerful as the yes, the no more of this, and I'm moving in this direction. So the releasing and then the expansion, right?
Right. And all we could do is just move towards a greater consciousness. Because even though I'm very aware of some things about how I'm contributing to climate change or exploitation of developing nations, et cetera, I don't necessarily know the alternative, and then there's this whole world of things that I haven't even fathomed yet, because undoubtedly 50 years from now, our great grandchildren are going to look back on how we have done X, Y, or Z and just go, oh my gosh, how could you guys have not known that? And so I'm also just very sensitive to that we are always walking on what humanity would judge as a balance of harm and benefit. And everybody defines that differently, where the harm is, where the benefit is. And so again, all we could do is try to be as conscious as we can, make the best choices that we can, realize that being a human means being fraught with difficult choices all the time, and to trust that that our creator is wise beyond our understanding, and this path that we're on, however difficult it is exactly as it's meant to be.
Yeah, and embracing all of it, right? The wholeness of it. It's kind of like you can't selectively feel, you know. It's like if you want to feel joy, you've got to be willing to feel grief, because the whole spectrum is available to us when we choose to open up to it and embrace the whole life experience that we've been given in this lifetime, and together, separately and
Yes.
together.
And I also know that those people who have treated me a certain way because I'm a female, or because I'm Asian or Chinese, or because I'm this, that, or the other, like, I also know that that is there for my learning and growth. Not all of it has been based on me being a minoritized identity, but I also know that those situations are my teachers. They taught me a lot about, well, they put me on a path of healing that I then carry forward into my offerings. And so I also feel like that those challenges and oppressions and mistreatments and even abuse, I would call it abuse, was there for me to find the gift I had for this lifetime to offer forward. So I'm not wanting to give people a pass for being abusive or violent. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying that when I look back on my path, I know that that was part of the curriculum I designed for myself. And I feel like it also took great courage on a soul level for somebody to be willing to be the instrument of learning and growth for another in that way.
Yeah, and it's that soul perspective, I think, that can help us to cope with some of these things that we witness that we might really judge. We might go, that shouldn't be so, shouldn't be like that. That's not love. And
Yes.
it's interesting too, because what I've noticed, because my husband is African American, and what I noticed about my husband is how strong he is and how aware, because his dad was a thought leader as well, and wrote this book, The Unshackled Mind. And it was for African American people to unshackle their minds from white supremacy and the history of this country. And the thing I love about it is that my husband was raised in that philosophy. And so he doesn't, he doesn't put his work onto anybody else. He's aware of how people are. It's not to say that it's not triggering when somebody's super unconscious, but it's that he knows the work lies with him. And because of that, he is a huge bright light. He is very giving and very compassionate and stronger in every way than so many other people I see who give into the unconscious matrix, right? And operate from it and choose not to look at it. They're operating from a place of weakness in not actually embracing that conversation is actually weaker, even though it looks like might is right and it looks forceful. It's actually a super disempowered space to stand in.
Oh, definitely. And when you're culture, your lineage, your family, has been pressed up against the drain for generations. You have the opportunity to learn how to unshackle, whereas people who have shackles but aren't forced to confront them have no idea. So it is in a way liberating to have to be given the opportunity and taking it to then learn how to create freedom from yourself for yourself, because much can happen to our body that can be truly horrific. But our souls and our spirits are immortal, and ours to decide what to do and where they go. And so that's the real freedom and the real power.
Yeah, I love that. And we have the power, the co-creative power to choose our path. We have the power to say yes or to say no. And we have the power to dismantle the inherited patterns that run through ourselves and also the whole collective, because as Rumi says, we are not a drop in the ocean, kind of like nestled up against other drops. We're the entire ocean in a drop. So if there's some pattern that's expressing out there that you find really offensive, then you can actually find that same pattern within yourself, heal it, clear it, transmute it, release it. And now you've just given a gift to the whole collective, to also have a much easier time releasing that pattern. And it's just amazing how things just sort of shift, talk about creating our own realities and what we want to see in the world. The power of the collective is way stronger than the power of a separate individual ego.
Oh, yes. Well said. And thanks for raising this, because, the other opportunity when we're feeling challenged by others' behaviors and beliefs is that we have to remember that when we're hating somebody else's behavior, that is our own projection, oftentimes, that we're hating. And so it's that mirror, and it's the reminder that it's our inner work that is calling us. And yes, I do believe that we are all like that drop of water. And when I do my inner work, it's not just for me, it's for everybody and for everything. And but also remembering that, again, like there's like the full expression of every idea is going to be out there. And it's going to be not just out there, but also within. And so, again, I could just point to other people and say, that's disgusting, that's awful, but I have that in me too. And so when I love that part of me too, and just know that that is the nature of being human, then I can love others, because I also feel like to be having that as one's reality must be very difficult. And I feel like either end of the spectrum, wherever you are, we're here to just be mirrors and show each other what's there. And what a beautiful thing to receive, to see the entirety of the fabric, the tapestry that is the human species.
Gosh, so lovely, so beautiful. So we're going to be bringing this to a close now. Is there anything that you really want to share with people as a way of getting to know you better, or getting started with a dialogue with you? How would you like to invite people to engage with you?
Oh, thanks for that question, Carrie. Well, obviously, I'd love for people to tune into my shows. I have Spiritual Tourist, and where Carrie was recently a guest on my show. And I also have one called The Best You. So it's really about getting under the hood and noticing those beliefs and behaviors and creating new patterns that we talked about already. That work comes from my nonprofit. You can find it at healingedu.org. We have a growing curriculum of topics on anything adjacent to mental illness adjacent. We're not clinical, through flourishing. We can develop these new skills. And the spiritual part, you can find us at sanctuaryoferarth.org. We have courses, workshops, retreats. We have courses, workshops, and retreats that you can participate in. And also my website, soulnectar.com. I'm available for healing and one-on-one sessions. I'm a soul medium and psychic, and I do tarot readings. The third show, Tarot for Starseed, will come out soon, I hope. So there's lots of ways to engage, and I would love to see you all. And thanks, Carrie, for having me on your show. It's been such a delight.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for doing all that you're doing to support the collective, and so grateful for that. And let's see. So I just want to read one more quote from Susanna. It's about the journey. There is no destination. Love that. Just remember it, guys. It's about the journey, not the destination. Everything's part of the journey. If it's showing up, it's for you, and it's for you to help work through. And so thank you for doing your service, and thank you for joining me and cancel clearing lots of patterns that are showing up, and helping to open up some new potentials on the planet for all of us to experience a new reality. And yeah, so thanks a lot, everybody. And we're gonna give you kisses. You want to help me join me in giving them kisses? Okay, here we go. Here's your kisses, everybody.
Thank you for your beautiful work, Carrie.
Thank you so much, and see you guys next week on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now.
If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken away to the show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are. Soul Nectar Show. Yeah, yeah.